Sorry about that. Thank you for having me. I'm doing wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm doing so good, Mark. Where are you calling in from today?
I actually happen to be in San Diego today.
San Diego. Is it warm and lovely?
It is warm and lovely. I believe it is pronounced San Diego, but
Says Ron Burgundy, I think,
just
right?
on, personal choice.
Well, thank you so much for calling in today. Can you tell us a bit about Net Worth Realty? You're the co-founder. Tell us a bit about your company. I rattled off some details there, but what I miss, what would you like to share with us?
Yeah, so happy to. We're very open and very transparent about who we are and what we do. Jose asked you to start your video. Okay. So we are a wholesale company. That is what we do. And when I mean wholesale, a lot of people aren't familiar with wholesale investment real estate. We essentially arbitrage. We purchase assets, single family, multifamily, residential properties that are distressed. So value add, all value add opportunities, some small commercial. We purchase those and then we turn around and sell them to other investor buyers, whether those be mom and pop individual landlord flippers, or whether those be Blackstone institutional type investors who are building portfolios. And we just kind of play the middle. We don't represent a buyer or seller in the transaction. Um, we have, I think, a little over 300 agents nationally, and we go out, those agents all just represent us. We go out and find these assets and then turn around and sell them. When we sell them, one of the things that's unique about our process is that we sell them in an off-market fixed pricing capacity. So there's very few assets that are sold at fixed pricing, especially at this type of a transaction level of a transaction. Things are negotiable. When I say they're fixed and non-negotiable, that's usually seen as a negative. Here, it's a benefit. What I mean by that is we don't do highest and best. A lot of real estate investors, when they go bid on a property, especially in today's market, there's multiple bids. And so the seller comes back to them and asks for their highest and best offer. We do not do that. It's a first come, first serve. There's definitely meat that is left on the bone. That is in part a huge piece of our model, is making sure that the investor is successful. If the investor is successful, they come back and buy more properties. If the investor is not successful, then we're ultimately not successful because they're not going to come back and buy more properties. So fixed pricing is a good thing because there are no highest and best, and everything is off market, which in real estate is a good thing. In other words, we do not advertise our properties on the MLS. We do not advertise our properties on our website. We do not advertise our properties anywhere on the interweb. It is all just direct sales, relationships, personal contact, and a lot of word of mouth.
Well, that's so important to harness those tools. We'll be talking a lot about that stuff today, and I'm sure we'll touch on it too, of the importance of networking and building those contacts, and in order to do that. But first, as we mentioned in your intro here, you're one of the, as a partner in the medium-sized company, that is Glassdoor, named, one of the top ones. So how do you help your team members to reach their potential? And, could you talk about like how big your team is and how that works for you on the larger scale? And then also how can you do that on the macro and the micro level and do that on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I mean, my personal opinion, and I hesitate to comment on every industry and every business, but this is really a trickle down for us. So what works with organizing when I say trickle down, we have our managerial level, right, which is really me and my partners who we manage. Is the office managers, the people who are running those 30 offices that we have out there throughout the country. Um, Maybe unusually, we're actually fairly involved at the agent level as well. In other words, all of our agents have access to the founders and CEOs of the company. We do trainings as well for those offices. And like I'm here in San Diego visiting our San Diego office. We actually get out and come to those offices and shake hands and kiss babies and do all that stuff. As far as helping our agents to be successful, I really believe that most things in business and in life are math. This is all math. If you don't, I was never very good at math. I had some math learning disabilities. And because of that, I had to take a lot of tutors and focus on it. And I became really good at math. And as I've gotten older, I realized that it's everything. And when I say it's everything, it's, how much force does it take to push the cart that I'm looking at with my breakfast on it, and, or the car wheel to turn, and this degree and that. But it's also, your business is a volume game. It is how much you can put in at the top of the funnel. And there are ratios for all of that. So for our agents, there's a personal, office, and company-wide ratio, closing ratio. Let's just say, how many offers does it take to buy a property? Okay. If you aren't aware of those ratios, then in setting your goals, you are essentially spitting into the breeze, for lack of a better term. You are taking a guess. I remember I walked into an office one day and I went to the top agent. I was doing a training and I was trying to explain this principle that we're talking about. And I said, okay, so what are your goals for the year? And he gave them to me, and they were a little conservative, as many people are with their goals. You should be very loose with your goals. It's better for you to fall slightly short of your goal and just crush it in trying, in my personal opinion, than it is to destroy your goal and do so, without breaking a sweat. That's going to push you further. So anyway, I asked this person their goals. They gave them to me, and then I said, "How are you going to do it?" And I'm a very aggressive kind of person generally. And he looks at me and goes, "I'm going to crush it," which I love, but that's not a plan. And that doesn't work the details and the numbers and the facts. And if the way you're approaching your job, I'm going to crush it, like maybe you do a good job and maybe you don't. But if you harness the knowledge and the power and the information that you have available to you by tracking what you do and the results that you get, then you can figure out, okay, I want to buy, I don't know, 20 properties this year. Okay. It takes me 20 offers to buy one property. Okay. Then you need to make at least 400 offers this year. Let's just call it 500 to be safe, to buy your 20 properties. Yeah. How many months are there? There's 12 months. Okay. So you need roughly 40 and change offers a month. That's 10 offers a week. That's 2 a day. Get at it, man. Or is it 1.5 a day if you're working 7 days a week? And so, math is everywhere. And a lot of times we overlook it, or overlook its power or usefulness, or we're just not sure how to dive into it. But for what I call batting averages, or any averages, right, of your closing ratio, how many meetings does it take to get a sale? How many tours does it take to get a sale? How many sales does it take for me to get a client that's a repeat client? These are all, and then you back your goals out. I want to make this much money a year. Okay, well, how much do you average per sale? How many sales do you need? How many meetings does it take to get that sale? And so on and so forth. And in doing that, you can back into your goals, so that rather than going into the day or the week or the month or the year, as we are, with an idea of what you want to do, a hope, a fire, you actually have not just a plan, like you have a real plan of action that lays out not only in what you can do during your day, but allowing you to hit the tipping point. If anybody's ever read that book, right, to hit the tipping point where results matter, right, and know that you're going to be doing that in the time that you have allotted for yourself, rather than just hoping for the best.
I love that. I love that there's, when you're speaking of the passion that you were excited about from this person, and also, okay, passion is great, but you need the big plan, which is like dream big, and then all of the tiny ones and zeros to get you to that place. So it's like a pyramid almost, right? It's like, if there's the prize up top, you got to do all these little things, 1.5 calls a day or sales a day to make that happen. And I think it's so important to, like, so for us to zoom out and be able to like make these small steps every single day. We talk a lot about this at Power to Fly, is like, what's one small thing you can do to advance your plan, your career, your job hunt, your sales force today? What does that look like for Mark? I'm sure you got a lot going on. You got all these different things happening. Do you have like a bulletin board? Do you have like Post-it notes everywhere? Do you just keep it all here? Like, how does that work for Mark?
It's definitely a bit of a beautiful mind scene. I'm a very visual person, so
Yeah.
when I didn't have assistants and people helping me, I had there was so many post-its and reminders, and I'm almost 50 years old, so like when I tell these people, we used to stand in line to use the fax machine to send out offers, right? And it wasn't like you didn't have like your Calendly wasn't reminding you of when your next phone call was. So I'm big visual. Nowadays, the way that I like to tell people to, I think, is the most efficient way for a um, highly distracted person to deal with their day. Between my calendar, if my reminders are a beautiful thing. If it's not on my calendar, I tell people there's a 90% chance it is not going to happen. Between my calendar and my email, I pretty much run my day. The way that I use my email is I have hundreds of folders under my inbox. Every email meets one of two fates, or three fates, I guess. It either gets dealt with and deleted, whatever dealt with is ignored or responded to, depending on the quality of the email. It either gets dealt with and stored in a folder so that I can deal with it later, or if it hasn't been dealt with, it stays in my inbox. And if it's in my inbox, then I know it's something that I have to deal with. And that way, at the end of the day, I can go through my text messages, I can go through my calendar, and I can go through my inbox and make sure that I've responded to and dealt with everything that I'm supposed to be dealing with. And I feel like that bit of technology has helped me as a disorganized individual to become much more organized.
Well, I love that. And it's speaking to, that makes me think about, I loved your story about struggling with having challenges with math as a young person, and then learning and then becoming better about it and taking the extra effort to be better at it. And now you work with math every day. And similarly, you did the same thing with feeling disorganized. You got a lot going on, and then you use these tools to help you get organized. And now it sounds like you're quite good at it. So good work. And it's inspiring.
Kind of bring that full circle. That's really what we're talking about here with these, like breaking your yearly goals down into daily things. Nothing is particularly hard if you divide it into small jobs and deal with it, right? It's like, how do you eat the elephant? One bite at a time, you eat the elephant. So that's what you have to do with it. And whether it's your organization or whether it's hitting a golf ball, I don't care what it is. If you spend a little bit of time every day, just even trying, thinking about getting better, taking a little bit of action, not just thinking, taking a little bit of action on that thought to improve just the most minute amount. I won't say insignificant amount, because it becomes significant over the course of time. This is the time value of money. If you don't understand the time value of money, physical things, laws of physics, time value of money, these things apply to the non-physical as well. An object motion easier to put in, easier to keep in motion than it is to put in motion. That applies to your business. Once you get it rolling, don't take 2 weeks off on a vacation. It's going to come to a complete stop, and you're going to have to start over. Once time value of money, a dollar today is worth more than a dollar tomorrow. If you don't understand that, Google it. I don't think we have time to get into it right now, but a minute today is worth more than a minute 10 years from now. If you put today, you will have free time tomorrow. If you don't put that minute or hour in today, it's 10 hours in 10 years that you're going to have to put in to make up for the missed connections and the compounding of all that networking that would have happened if you just took action today. So use that compounding. It doesn't have to be massive action, just little bits every day, and you will eventually climb the mountain. It's like the Great Wall of China. You know how they built the Great Wall of China?
One brick at a time.
One brick at a time. I have to fight my.
Yeah. That's fantastic. It's so important, and it's because it's so easy to get caught up in like, oh, I have these great ideas, but it's just so overwhelming, right? And to break it down into these small tasks each day, that's how we do it, one brick by brick. So can you tell us a bit about the true value method that you that you use at Net Worth Realty? Have we been talking about that in the sidelines right now, or is there a more specific thing that you want to hone in on there for that?
Oh, I'm happy to talk about anything. Our true value method is, so we go out in our business, the way that we present our properties, okay? There is what we call an NPO, net worth price opinion, which is kind of like, if you're familiar with the investment business, what most people would refer to as an ARV, after repair value. But as some of you may know, if we're not licensed appraisers, we're not allowed to call something a value. So we call it a price opinion, not a BPO, but a net worth price opinion. A BPO is a broker's price opinion for those of you who don't know. So one of the things that we do that I think allows us to help sell, it shows, as you all know, in relationships, actions speak volumes. I can't hear what you're saying because what you're doing is speaking so loudly. Make sure you recognize that. We go back every year and we quality check our values. So every property that we sell, like let's say this year ends in a couple of weeks, in probably April. So January, February, March. Yeah, April, May. We give everybody 4 or 5 months because the property that I sold December 25th or 24th, right, is going to take 4 or 5 months to hit market. So we wait 4 or 5 months for everything to clear through. We go and we do an address search for every property that we've sold that year. We pull it up. If it was resold on the MLS, we look at what it was resold for. We make sure that the repairs were done because some people will buy our properties, just kind of clean them up and then throw them on the MLS and try and make a small profit. So we look for the ones that we're fully run the play on. We make sure that the value, we don't make sure, we look at what the value is and compare that to what our NPO was. And every year we come up with a percentage that our investors get on average versus what we predicted they would get. For the last probably 10 years running, in every office, they're at or over 100%. In other words, if we predicted the value to be 500 grand, it's usually about 103 to 105% of what we predicted. Yes, it helps to be in a great market, but this is going all the way back to, really 2010-ish. So there's plenty of data there. And part of our true value method is making sure that one of the big pieces when you're an investor, there is how much is it worth? How much is it going to cost to make it worth that much? Obviously, any carry costs, taxes, etc., interest, and then what can I buy it for? It's that simple. This isn't an emotional decision. This is a business decision. Nobody cares if the kitchen isn't big enough or if it faces south by southwest versus north by northeast. It's what did the comp sell for? What did the comp look like? Can we make it look like that comp? So by removing one of those three big categories and saying, look, you can obviously do your own due diligence. We encourage everybody to do their own due diligence, but you can rest assured that our values are real, that we're not making up numbers, that we're not using fake comps, and you can look at the history of that to see what it is. Because in our industry, a lot of people have a reputation for, let's say, embellishing the values a bit, or maybe using a comp that's on the other side of a highway and doesn't really apply, and trying to finagle it a little bit. So we also go out of our way we work with Home Depot. We try and make sure that our investors get a massive discount on their materials, as well as trying to make sure that the rehab estimates that we're giving are real and able to be accomplished in today's market with the materials that are available at the prices that they're available at.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for sharing about that. That is, yeah, it's really great to hear. So can you speak to has the way you run, you said, since 2010, you have all this data, and have things changed during the pandemic now of how you run business? Loaded question. And what has and what hasn't?
Oh my gosh. Wow. So we're a Texas-based company originally. I think we have now 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, almost 10 offices of the 30 offices that we have are in Texas. So it was very interesting, first of all, as an aside, as a business owner who has offices all over the country, to just in the beginning see the way that each state was dealing with it and how that affected each office differently. So we had a lot of changes. We are a face-to-face business. As I said in the beginning, we don't put our stuff up on the internet. So when we have a meeting, if I was to meet you off of a networking event or whatever, I would have you come into our office and sit down for a meeting. Well, that obviously became Zoom immediately, which is not beneficial in my personal opinion. It starts to get to the point where someone's doing a Zoom meeting and they're driving down the highway. It's like, but you can't, this is not going to work for anybody, right? And so you have to retrain your agents on what to expect and how to deal with that. Like some 25-year-old people don't know how to approach somebody and go, hey man, I need 30 minutes of your undivided attention, not while you're driving down the highway at 65 miles an hour. That's dangerous for you, and it's a waste of my time and energy. So dealing with that was very different. Showings obviously were all over the place. You know, you had everything from people who wanted to walk through a house by themselves. That they had everybody had to make sure they had masks on inside, outside. It just everybody had a different sensitivity level to what was going on. So it made it very interesting. We tended to try to cater to the most sensitive of people. And then if other people didn't like that, then they can go buy their houses somewhere else. One of the great things about having the gold is you get to make the rules. So people will buy their houses from us as long as the numbers make sense, as long as we're not being completely unreasonable. If I ask somebody to wear masks or stand outside, they might not like it, but they'll do it. So we were able to wield a bit of power during that time. And when I say power, to make sure things were done properly and that people weren't just running amok. And that those I think were really the biggest changes were just the lack of we're an old fashioned business. We like, as we say, shaking hands and kissing babies. And, you know, not being able to do that changes the way you interact with people dramatically.
I love that you use that phrase. Sounds like you're running for president. So what are you doing? Or I mean, now things are opening back up in a lot of states, but
Yeah.
during that time when you were doing all those Zoom meetings and you weren't listing things online, how was it going? How did you, like, you were talking about you were retraining your agents, but like sounds like a complete paradigm shift for the way you used to run your company.
It is, or well, I shouldn't say complete paradigm shift. It was definitely a lot of detail shift in how the model was delivered to the general public, right? However, because of the specifics of the pandemic and what it did to people wanting to kind of be in a better home, own more real estate, maybe own a second home somewhere where they could sneak off to it without having to have a hotel reservation or be around other people or whatever it might be. You know, demand was overwhelming. We were able to from 2021, sorry, from 2020 to 2021 and 2021 to 2022, for the most part, we've been able to grow our revenues, the number of deals that we do, as well as the gross margin on those deals. So it was, though it's been challenging and been more difficult to adjust the model, I think at the end of the day, the fact that demand was just so high, you know, cured any issues that might have come up.
That makes a lot of sense. And like, yeah, like you said, like during, I live in New York City. So a lot of people were trying to get out, right? Because we're in a very densely populated area. There's a lot of other cities like that in across the country, and people were moving to different states. They're going to more wide open areas. They're looking for more property. So I saw a lot of that happening firsthand with, peers and just the population. Are you seeing like a movement of like people like back into cities and stuff like that? Like that ebb and flow, what does that look like now on your front?
Yeah, I mean, I think that people were, as human beings are, and you know, as you go through life, you start to see that every time we have something happen on either side, when I say on either side, whether it's the action or the reaction, it's always knee jerk and overreacted to, right? Like, when 2008 and mortgages collapse and Lehman goes under and everybody freaks out. And now if you ask people, oh, if I could go back to 2008, I'd buy 100 rental properties. Well, that's not what you were saying in 2008. But
Right.
now we're in, and we have another overreaction by the Fed, and then another overreaction. Well, I shouldn't say overreaction by the Fed, maybe just a bit late. And because of that, now too steep or steeper than it might have needed to be in terms of the increase, which has now created a bit of an overreaction in buyers, just like, oh my God, what are you going to do? Interest rates, right? Okay, well, interest rates will eventually come back down. You can refi. And if you take real estate prices and pick any period in time for the last 100 years and go 15 years forward, 10 years forward, including 2008, your properties are worth more money. So if you could go back to 2008 and buy more, you would. You know that interest rates are only temporary, and you know that values will always go up over the course of time. And yet still as humans, we can't help but falling back into the same pattern.
Yep, here we are. The wheel keeps turning round, right?
So
So
if you go, I'd buy more property in 2008, then throw it out there, man. Take the risk. Risk rewarded. If you take the risk, you will be rewarded.
well, and that's, I think, a great thing to wrap up with this last question is, so how do you set goal? Like, how do you decide on goal setting, and what's coming up for Mark Bloom and your net worth realty community of folks and your employees? What's up for 2023?
Great question. So for us, setting goals is a mixture of looking back at what is historically relevant to us in terms of, okay, well, over the last 10 years, how much have we grown on average a year? Okay, so my goal should be significantly greater than the average growth for every year, but it shouldn't be so ridiculous that it's just impossible to attain. And I look at history to make sure that, as a guidepost, I guess, for lack of a better term. And then we go in and we start to break those numbers down. And I go, okay, if I want my annual revenues to be here, or if I want to do this, and I have to pick 2 or 3 things that I focus on. I'll give you a little Richard Branson story to kind of wrap this up. But you can't have 10 goals. Well, you can. You're not going to be able to deal with all 10 of those goals in a viable way, the way that you would like to, unless 2 or 3 of them are huge, big goals, and 6 or 8 of them are like, I want to turn my turn signal on every time I change lanes, which everybody should be doing. Don't make me yell at you. So the Richard Branson story is this. Richard Branson was reached out to by a company. The company said, we want to pay you, I don't know, $150,000 to speak. They reached out to his assistant. Assistant says no. They reach back out. They're like, we have to have Richard Branson. It's been an amazing year. We want to pay him $500,000 to speak at this speaking engagement. Mr. Branson says no. Well, at this point, I think the company had kind of, and I've heard this story from an internal person. The company had started to kind of tell people, "Hey, we're going to get Richard Branson to come speak at our yearly our annual seminar," and Richard Branson's shutting them down. And so 500 grand, they say no. So they go back and go, "Look, we have to have Mr. Branson at our thing. Here's what we're willing to do. We will pay him $1 million. We will get a plane to pick him up at whatever airport he wants to be at. We will fly him directly to the event. There's a landing strip just around the corner. We will land. He will come in. He will speak for 1 hour. We will put him on the plane and fly him back immediately." And you know what he said? He said no. And his assistant finally told them, he said, "Listen, Mr. Branson has 3 goals every year. If I book him something that does not get him closer to one of those 3 goals, I'm fired. He will not do it. You have to have absolutely laser focus. You set a goal for yourself out in the future. There are a certain number of steps or physical amount of work that you're going to have to put in to get from where you're at to that goal. You need to make peace with that. The other thing you need to make peace with is that anything that comes between you and those goals must absolutely be destroyed. And that doesn't mean that you have to destroy it in a terrible way. If it's your parents or it's your significant other, you have to move that out of your way. If they are not going to be with you, then in some ways they're against you. You should have people on your team that back your vision and know where you're trying to go. And don't take things in that strictly waste your time. Try to stay focused on the 2 big goals that you have every month, every year, every quarter, and that will be a massive benefit.
Stay laser focused. Thank you for your laser focus, Mark Bloom, during this conversation. I appreciate you. How do folks stay connected with you, and what's the best way to, reach out?
Of course. So Instagram, Relentless Real Estate. And if you want to go to our website, it is net worth, like your financial net worth, realtyusa.com. Obviously, check us out on Glassdoor. If you know anybody who's ever looking for a job and they're willing to hustle and they're looking for a real opportunity to change their lives, we are always hiring good human beings. And if you're looking for inventory or you're looking to get into real estate, wholesaling, flipping, building a rental portfolio, hopefully that's the best way to build wealth is to hold real estate. Let us know. I'd be happy to help. I'm also happy to give out my personal email if anybody wants to reach out directly. It is Mark, M-A-R-K, at networthrealtyusa.com. So I'm here to help. If I can be of any assistance, help you in any way, please don't hesitate.
Awesome. Mark, thank you so much for making the time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your time in sunny San Diego.
Yeah, enjoy New York, buddy.
All right. Take care now.
You guys have a great one.
Thanks. You too.